Welcome, Schuco and Tin Toy fans. This is the Tin Meister, and today we're going to repair and refurbish a Schuco micro racer. This is a VW 1046 from about 1958. It's in pretty good shape. All the pieces are here, which is a real lucky find for us. You can tell it's a real one because Schuco is prominent and in the script there, and it also says made in Western Germany. So one of the things that's wrong with the car is the steering knob is not in alignment with the body. So that's probably why the car sits low in the front as well. So take a look at this next picture and you can see the car sits way too low in the front. And that's probably because the steering knob is not in alignment with the body, as we just mentioned. The car is actually in pretty good shape. I got it with a set of 4 cars. And the reason I bought all 4 cars off of eBay from one fellow was because of this car. It's a very early micro racer in pretty good shape, and all the pieces were there. Well, almost all the pieces. So here is a picture of that front end. It's really way too low. So let's start the disassembly of the car. We turn it upside down and take the 2 screws out. They're actually the original screws, which is a good find. There's one of them. Take both the screws out, and once we have those screws out, we can take the car apart. Now, excuse all this motion I've got here. I should have used a tripod with the camera to take it apart so I can use both my hands, but I'm trying to do this with one hand. It's not working very well. But anyway, take all the pieces out and then inspect them. There goes the front bumper. Let's turn it around and see if we can find anything wrong with it. Nothing obvious. And here's the car. It's taken apart, and there's the motor. It's in pretty good shape. We're going to oil it up in a little while. And there are the bumpers. The front bumper is missing a rubber buffer, and there's the steering mechanism. There's the bottom plate or the chassis, and there's the body. It's in pretty good shape. We're going to clean the inside of that body first. Here's the bottom plate or the chassis. So now that we've got it apart, it's time to clean it and oil it. So oil up these parts, the steering mechanism and the motor, and let it sit overnight for the oil to evaporate. Use your brush and clean off all these parts, and also start to polish if you need to. Polish the body. Now again, I've said this before, but I like to clean the inside, so all the inside of the car is very clean, no lint, no rust, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, guys and gals, now we're going to assemble the car. We've let the oil kind of dry on the metal parts so we don't have excess oil. We've wiped a little of it. If there was any excess oil, we've kind of wiped it down a little bit, but still left some oil on the metal parts. So the first thing we want to do is we want to wind the motor, which I've already done. We want to wind the motor so that the spring is below the gear here, and that makes it easier to fit into the car. Next, we want to take the chassis, put it down on our workbench, and then we're going to start assembling the car. And we'll do that in the following steps. So we've got our chassis on the workbench, and notice that this little tab right here, this little peg, is where the steering is going to fit in. And the motor is going to fit on the back there. It's going to fit in nicely, and the front of the motor is going to fit on that upright right there. Very important. So you put the motor in. First you put the motor in, and you put it on those little markers that I just mentioned to you. Make sure it all fits nicely. And on the front, here's the steering mechanism. I've turned it upside down, but there's the hole that peg is going to fit into. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Here we go. So there's the steering mechanism. Turned it correct way, so the peg goes into that little hole. So in this next photo, you can see that the steering shaft is on top of the drive axle, and that little space right there is very important. It's going to fit into the body in just a moment. So let's turn the body around. You can see the steering shaft is on top of the drive axle, and that is the drive or the shifter, and that is the winder, and those are going to fit into the body. So when you put the body on, you have to be careful that they fit through the window or next to the hole. So now we fit the body on. You have to tilt it to get it through the window there, but this point is where the steering knob fits exactly into that little hole in the body. Very important. That's what was wrong with the car to start with. It wasn't fitting in that hole correctly. So now we take a look at it. It's together, but we have to make sure the body is on top. We have to make sure that it's actually flush, because sometimes it doesn't fit quite right. You have to take on and off. So make sure it's flush at the front of the car. Notice the bumpers aren't on yet. Make sure it's flush at these sides and the other side. Make sure it's flush and it doesn't move. There it is in the back, and it's pretty flush right there too. No bumpers yet. We'll do that in a moment. So now that the body is on and it's flush and doesn't move, we're going to look at the bumpers, and there's where the buffer is missing. I looked in my parts, I couldn't find one, but I'll look again. I'm sure I have one somewhere. So we're going to take the front bumper and we're going to push it into the body as we're going to lift the chassis up just slightly to get that the bumper in, and we push it in, and then we screw down the front of the car. Do not tighten it, just hold it, just put it in so you can hold it. The next thing is we want to go to the rear, lift up the rear just slightly and push in the rear bumper, and then put in the screw in the back. And now if everything's looking good, now you can tighten those screws. There's the rear screw we just put in. So tighten up those screws. It should work just fine now. And now we're going to take a look and make sure it fits correctly in the back. The bumper's on correctly. The steering knob is in the right position, or the correct position. And the front bumper is in the correct position. So if we know the car is back together correctly, the next thing we do, as we do with all our toys, is we make sure they test correctly. So we try the steering mechanism, make sure the steering works, and then we get our key out, we wind up the car and make sure it works and the shifter works from stop to start, and there we are. So guys, the micro eraser works really great. So we'll give it one last polish. We'll take our cleaner wax one last time. Put a little on there. And give it one last polish. Not rubbing very hard. And we were very lucky to find this one. Let that wax dry a little bit, and we'll be back with you in just a minute. Bye-bye. So Schuco and Tin Toy fans, thanks for watching this repair of the micro eraser by Schuco. And I think in a little while we're going to show you all of the micro erasers by Schuco. I think I have all of them, but I'm not positive. I think so. So until next time, good night everyone.